ahead and start. We are at 3:30 and you can go ahead and start.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. Can we establish a quorum, please?
Yes, Commissioner Bethigi,
Here.
Commissioner O'Reilly,
Here.
Vice Chair Cohen,
Here.
Commissioner Olson,
Here.
Commissioner Nagel.
Here.
We have a quorum of five commissioners present.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any public comments not on the agenda, Jamie?
No, and there was just one public comment that was received before it was an email sent in by Pat Marriott, so we included it with this agenda packet.
email.
Correct. Yes,
So is.
but no other public comments for this
Do
meeting
we
at this time.
keep that email out now and
No, we do not.
don't do anything with it?
Correct. It's just information.
Jamie there. Heard it. But she's not allowed to talk.
No.
So we have two special presentations. The first one is Debbie Ta, President and CEO of Choice in Aging. Debbie, thank you so much for coming today. We appreciate your time.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So, if you're ready to present, we are ready.
Okie
So let's
dokie.
Double check. Jamie, are we ready?
We are. Yes.
So I need to be able to share my screen.
Yeah. And can we make sure she can hear you?
Can you hear us?
A little bit, yes, but it won't let me share my screen.
Oh.
I'm gonna turn that volume.
Debbie, you should have the ability to share your screen now.
Okie dokie. Here we go. All right. Let's see. Slideshow. So now you can see it in presentation mode, yes? No?
No, you're good, Debbie.
Oh, okay. You can see it.
But how
Yes,
do
we
make
can.
her louder?
Pause. Unfortunately, the box that's supposed to be in the back of the TV that I can turn it louder is not there.
That's all we can do right now. Sorry. Box it on. There you go. You can hear it.
I can check the, give me one moment. Let me see if it's in here.
Debbie, we're checking on the volume. Give us a minute here.
No worries.
Thank you.
Do we ask that the Zoom people can hear?
Everything should be fine on there. It's just if we can't hear here, we'll do what we can on here. No,
Is that better?
No, that's the other.
It's 100%. No, it's working. Jamie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah, but this one is, I think it might be the other one. That one's activated. Okay, try again, Debbie.
So is that better? Can you hear me?
A little bit clearer.
I just went up to 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what we can
Yeah,
do.
that's what we can do.
So can
Okay.
folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
You can go
Okay,
ahead.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Sure, I promise you that my husband never asks me to turn up my volume, so it's a rare occurrence when somebody asks me to be louder. So I'm Debbie Toth. I'm with Choice in Aging. We're a nonprofit organization based in Pleasant Hill. We provide community-based long-term supports and services to adults with disabilities and frail elders, keeping them out of institutions. And as a necessity, we do policy and legislative advocacy, not because that's the organization that we are. We're a direct service provider. But without policy advocacy, we are eliminated every year in a state budget. We're not prioritized in county and city level. So that's why we've gotten into the space that we've gotten into. So I'm going to walk you through sort of our little local exploration process of how we got older adults prioritized in Contra Costa County. So I don't know if you know who this is, Professor Taurus Gill. He's one of the rare human beings in this world who's a professor at both USC and UCLA and loves them both. But he is a policy expert. He was a 3-time presidential appointee, 3 different administrations, and an incredible, just brilliant mind around policy. And I brought him to help us frame the policy because what I recognized was that our local board of supervisors had legislative advocacy at the federal level and state level priorities in their they even have a committee that governs that. I had no idea. And when I found the document that outlined their legislative priorities at the state and federal level, 40 pages, not one mention of older adults. And so I got Professor Taurus Gill to come help us kick off this thing. So it's important that you get funding. I got a $50,000 grant from the Thomas J. Long Foundation. They were spending down at the time. I identified one of the members of our board of supervisors who was very interested in aging issues and educated her, gave her a tour of our adult day healthcare program, was like, you have to come talk to us because we have problems. We're not being prioritized. We got eliminated in the state budget. Adult day healthcare did as a fee-for-service Medi-Cal program. We had to go through this whole lawsuit thing. San Francisco stepped up and saved their adult day healthcare. Alameda stepped up and saved their adult day healthcare. Contra Costa didn't know we existed. So it was like this education, getting them in the room, talking to them about the issues, and bringing expertise to the table. So I brought different experts in the places and spaces, identify the players. I'm going to tell you, everybody, all policy is aging policy, because even if you don't love older adults, how we manage our lived systems, our health systems, our parks, our cities, everything, how we plan and build and serve impacts all of us. And if we don't do it well, it's going to cost future generations for many, many generations to come. So get everybody involved, get your nonprofits involved, get your for-profits involved, get your county involved, get your city involved, get older adults, get younger adults, get everybody in. Sorry, I already said that all policy is aging policy, and the get to work. So we started convening meetings. We were planning. This was what we came up with. So there were 2 different massive convenings that we did where we brought transit providers, emergency responders, physicians, commissions on aging, independent living center, the veterans programs, volunteer rides programs, developmental disability day program, like everybody you have in your community that touches older adults or people with disabilities, they need to be in the room. And we had an expert facilitator. That's where the bulk of the $50,000 grant went, was to this facilitation, this process building, a steering committee, putting it all together. And after 2 days of being facilitated through the process, this was the policy platform that we ended up with: evaluate, convene, educate, and advocate. And each of those had different areas. So that ultimately got adopted into the Board of Supervisors legislative and advocacy platforms. That meant that anytime we needed to get some support in that area, whether it was advocating at the state level, at the federal level, at the local level, we had the Board of Supervisors on our side. So what ended up happening was, years later, that was in 2016, In 2020 in Contra Costa County, we passed a 1/2 cent sales tax that was a safety net tax. And we were able to, because the Board of Supervisors legislative and advocacy platform said that we wanted to be able to have people age in place in Contra Costa, we were able to get funding through that 1/2 cent sales tax to reinforce that aging in place concept. And so we had money going towards care management, infrastructure of the nonprofits that were serving older adults, transportation, case management. So all of this was able to happen because we developed a policy and we implemented it. And I just want to sort of tug on your heartstrings a little bit, because I ask this question often when I'm in person doing presentations. How many of you, when you were young, thought, gee, when I get older, I want to live in a skilled nursing facility? I have to tell you, I've been at Choice and Aging for 22 years. I've been doing presentations for probably 21 of them. And never have I had anybody raise their hand and say, yes, I do. That's what I dreamt of, was being in a skilled nursing facility. So, um, given that nobody really ever wants to be living in a skilled nursing facility, but nobody knows what they look like until the pandemic. And then we start seeing these headlines, right? We saw it on the news, we saw it in the newspaper, we saw it online, we saw it everywhere. Skilled nursing facilities, people were dying in droves. There was centers, these skilled nursing facilities that had years and years and years of infection control findings at state visits that did nothing about it, now had dead bodies piling up in their basements. Like, it was insanity. And the world got to see what it looked like to be in a skilled nursing facility. And it makes our work so much more important. So I always like to use this Stephen Covey quote: begin with the end in mind. What do we want our world to look like? What do we want our city to look like? What do we want our community to look like? We want it to look like a world where everyone can age in their setting of choice with the support they need to live with joy and dignity in the community. And I say joy because people oftentimes leave out this. I don't know why. I mean, ageism, ableism, there's lots of like whys in this, but we really become invisible as we age. And the concept that we somehow age out of the ability or desire or right to experience joy, to me, is just nuts. And that's why, so just a little bit about us. We're here to create opportunities where people can learn, grow, and age independently with dignity and community. We have 2 adult day healthcare programs. We do California community transitions, where we get people out of skilled nursing and move them back into the community. We do caregiver support groups. We do one-on-one caregiver counseling. We do caregiver retreats. We feed them meals. We give them massages. We love on them so that they continue being able to give to their loved one at home. We have an intergenerational Montessori preschool. The little humans come over and hang out with our adult day healthcare participants, because guess what? Those are their friends. So the little humans call the older humans their friends. So they're never going to grow up to be ageist or have old people become invisible, because those have been their friends. We have MSSP, the Multipurpose Senior Services Programs, which is a nurse and social worker team that goes into the homes of people 65 and older on Medicaid and puts together a plan to keep them out of a skilled nursing facility. By the way, skilled nursing facilities cost about $125,000 a year to Medi-Cal per person in California now. MSSP, it's $6,000 per person per year to keep them out. So I love older adults. I believe they should have independence, joy, dignity, and all those things, but it also costs taxpayers significantly less to have programs and services in the community to support them. It costs us less money to have new developers and developments incorporate rollable communities rather than just walkable communities, because it costs less money because people don't get institutionalized. Finally, there's PEAS. It's a mental health case management program, but this gives you an idea. We totally had to do things differently in the pandemic. And as long as we're flexible in what we do and how we think, and I go back to that policy, if you remember, there were 4 components to that policy. But at the end of the day, you want people to be able to age in place. And so you can pivot to do whatever it is that looks like that. So we were doing mobile vaccine clinics all over our county when vaccines became available. When we found out that people were dying from COVID in those small residential facilities, the small boarding care homes, because they don't have medical staff there, and older adults' bodies don't process things the same way that younger bodies do. So where we saw on the news that people were dying from COVID. They had coughs, they had fevers. Like, that's not how it was presenting in older adults, particularly those with Alzheimer's. So they didn't have those outward symptoms, but their blood oxygen level was dropping. So we had a death in our community. We learned that it was because the blood oxygen level had dropped to the point of no return once they were actually physically showing signs of distress. So we got $10,000 on a Friday night. On a Saturday, we purchased 375 pulse oximeters. On Monday, we had the health plan print out instructions on how to use them. We laminated them, and within 1 week, we had mobilized our Kiwanians, our Rotarians, our church people, like everybody, and they went out and distributed them within 1 week countywide, and we didn't have any more deaths as a result of that. We did road shows. We did happy birthday parties in backyards and out on the streets. We started a show called Dishing with Debbie and had different experts come on and provide information to people. We did convenings for the master plan on aging locally. We figured out where we had low uptake in vaccine rates, and we started doing education sessions and plugging into the faith-based community. So we just started doing a bunch of different things, a bunch of different ways. And we ended up, I think, with some really, really happy people who didn't die of COVID. So that's our story, and that's how we got there. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any, or if you want me to dive a little deeper into the policy and advocacy, I'm happy to do that as well.
I have a perhaps an extension question. Do you do this kind of work for other counties or just Contra Costa?
So we just did it in Contra Costa. We provide services in Contra Costa, Napa, Solano, and Sacramento counties. But this work, because our home office is in Contra Costa, and Contra Costa is where our 2 adult day healthcare programs are, and they were the ones that were almost eliminated. So really the policy, and that's where we saw that they didn't know who we were and weren't stepping in to help us like Alameda and San Francisco were. So that's where my focus came. And it was just me it was me driving this, right? It's not, we don't have a division in our organization that does policy and advocacy and all of that. It was just me doing it as a survival mechanism. But I think that I figured out a recipe, right? And I think that it's replicable, and I think that other communities can do that. And I can certainly, I think I have all of the materials that we used in terms of how we developed the steering committee, who we invited to the meetings, and how we started doing that policy development.
Okay, to keep on talking, I have one more question. Do you happen to know if Santa Clara County has a program like this or something similar to it, or is there a way that you could influence Santa Clara County through the supervisors or any other means?
You know, Choice in Aging is a rare organization. I don't think that there are any other organizations that have the mix of programs and services that we do. So we're a little bit of an outlier, but I would say that if you have adult day programs, you do in Santa Clara County, you have some adult day programs, you have the multi-services senior services program, you have MSSP, you have adult day programs, like you have the players in the mix who it would benefit to be a part of this convening. So I could see that happening. And now with the state having a master plan for aging, there is a body of policy at the state level that you can plug into at the local level. So there were grants that the California Department of Aging gave out to help plan for the master plan for aging for implementing policy locally. I think they went through 2 rounds of funding with that. I don't know if they'll have additional funding for that. But you should also, if I'm not mistaken, have a regional coalition that's funded by the SCAN Foundation. Does any of that sound familiar to you?
No, we have this thing called SourceWise that we're gonna be talking about later.
Right. So SourceWise is your MSSP provider, I think, right?
Manny, can you provide more?
I don't know the initials. What is MSF?
The multi-purpose senior services program, the program that
Yeah.
I mentioned, that's the nurse and social worker team. I think
Yeah, Sourcewise, usually it was the Santa Clara Coalition on Aging previously. So they're really just a source to provide these, show us where the services are provided at. So yeah, they are basically.
Yeah, yeah. So they would really be your entity that could be the convener for this work. Like they have contracts with the state, they get the Older Americans Act funding through them, right? Like all of this comes through SourceWise, I think. So they should be able to be the facilitator, or you could be the facilitator for the work. It's get it. I would strongly encourage you to get some money. So get a grant, get a facilitator, and start the planning process. And if you bring all of the players in, your health plans, your transportation providers, your emergency responders, your service providers, day programs, complex case management, if you bring all these people together and you develop policy, your board of supervisors will adopt it because it's been a community driven process and you brought in for-profit, nonprofit, government, like you brought in all the players, and the voice of lived experience is extremely important. So having older adults be a part of the conversation, people who are on Medi-Cal, people who are receiving food from the food bank, like these are important voices to have at that table as well.
Thank you very much.
Debbie, how can the senior commission, assist in getting adult daycare programs within their city?
So they're very expensive to start. The social model less expensive than the healthcare model. So the adult day healthcare model, it's well over $1 million to start up one. It's extremely costly. So I would say the social day model is an easier one, an easier lift. They're licensed through the Department of Social Services as opposed to the public health department. It doesn't have the same, so adult day healthcare has the staffing of a skilled nursing facility in a day program. The social model, it's really activity professionals that are working with older adults. So it's a much easier lift to do that. And it's typically you go to an existing provider and ask them if they'd be willing to expand. Real estate is very expensive. So you're going to want to look at churches. Are there churches that are vacant Monday through Friday that might offer their space, or other places of worship? I don't know. You may have mosques. I'm sorry, I'm not terribly familiar with Santa Clara County, but if you could help find the space and you could find it at low or no cost, you would have a much greater opportunity to have day programs exist. And if you can co-locate next to a preschool, then you can also bust ageism by having intergenerational programming.
Does your city offer it at your community center?
No, so Choice in Aging has been around for 75 years, and we actually started as a polio rehab facility for children who were severely disabled from polio. So our building has been around for 75 years and we're leveling and rebuilding, and that's a whole nother story. But no, our city doesn't provide that for us, but our city could have been involved. They have a rec and park as a special district in Pleasant Hill. So they could have shared community space with us because they have a community center, they have a preschool, they have all these programs. There are also a lot of churches I've had reach out to me recently to talk about how they could do better with all the space and land that they have. So I've been talking to them about building housing for our care force, because we have a massive shortage of caregivers, right? So if they actually had affordable places where they could live local to where their jobs are, chances are we'd have a much greater workforce. And I like the term care force. It's not yet adopted, but I love it, so feel free to use it. But I think that those are where your opportunities are, and to have the conversation. So your local county has an area plan that the Area Agency on Aging put together and got approved by the California Department of Aging to be the area plan for 4 years. In that plan, it should talk about the demographics. So if you can go to your city council and say, we've got this aging population, and by 2030, we're going to have 25% of the population is going to be 60 or older. And in our community, we have X number of people who are going to be 85 and older. These are folks who are gonna have a 1 in 2 chance of having dementia or Alzheimer's. We need to do better. We need to have better, more accessible places. We need to have more support in our community for community living. So you can make the arguments. They should have already done some research. They should already have a plan. You are just making it more concrete and specific to the things that you can do as a commission to make it better.
So, Debbie, at the Cal Cities meeting, you really spoke to how commissions can have a strong role in implementing programs within their cities. Could
Yeah.
you share that here?
So the Commission on Aging in Contra Costa is a countywide commission, the Advisory Council on Aging is very, very involved. I got a grant through the SCAN Foundation. That's why I was asking about that, because that's where you really engage your cities. So the Advisory Council on Aging in Contra Costa is a countywide body that informs the Board of Supervisors on aging issues and oversees all of the Older Americans Act funding that comes into the county. But they are comprised of members of the 19 cities and towns in Contra Costa of their aging commissions, their local commissions. So they're working on county-wide policy and bringing it back to their cities. Most of them are doing little initiatives in their cities. Pleasant Hill was putting benches in parks so that older adults weren't standing the whole time they were at a park if they wanted to watch the kids at play. So it could be something that small, or it could be something like bringing in a day program. It could be something like advocating to not have a closure of an adult day healthcare program that's losing funding. So they operate in different ways in different places, but that's how they came together, worked as a group, and then brought back things to their cities. One of the things that I absolutely loved, and this was separate from the policy planning, was I got a grant to bring in this organization in Toronto called 880 Cities. And their philosophy is if you build communities for 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds, everyone will thrive in them. So they came down for a day. I invited 2 members of each city council and a member from their planning commission or planning department to come to this day-long retreat that we did with 880 Cities. They taught us about 880 Cities. They showed us examples of what they've done all over the world with 880 Cities. And then we worked in teams to build projects that we would do theoretically locally to make our communities more accessible. And one of the walkaways that one of our Antioch City Council members took was there will not be a single new development that goes into Antioch that does not have an 880 lens. I am not going to approve a plan given to me if it is not rollable community, if it is not accessible and thoughtful about younger and older adults. And so it's really easy to do little simple stuff like that that will have big impacts on future generations and current generations.
You also spoke about how individual commissions within a city and how you talked about empowering them to make sure the focus was on programming within the city.
So I'm not remembering if that was beyond what the 880 Cities concept was, but the individual city commissions, like Lafayette started a village. They wanted to do a village movement, and they went to the city and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the research. We're going to do the work. And they did. They gathered the research. They looked at what other communities were doing with villages. They decided that they were going to create one. They started looking at the usage of their land. Like, they really just took the reins and went with it. These are what we see and need in our community, and they just started doing the work of it. So I don't think that it's asking for permission, but I think that if you can build a policy platform in your county and in your city that supports the concept of aging in place, then you can get funding from foundations. You can get funding. I mean, you're like Silicon Valley area adjacent, right? There's so much money there. To me, you could get funding to start building these plans and having your city, your aging commissions really say, these are the 3 things that we want to make sure we have in our county. We want to have caregivers for any older adults. We want to have care managers and navigators for older adults, and we want to have a day program. Like whatever, I'm just making up those three, but based on the research that we've done in our community, these are the three things we want to have. In city council, we would like some funding to do this from general fund, or we want to do a sales tax measure. This was the other thing, is that the sales tax measure was generated in Contra Costa County and is funding the work now. So there's no reason you can't do a local sales tax measure, just like they do for library, right? Why is it that we open libraries and we do sales tax measures for libraries or roads or schools, but we don't think about older adults? Why not do that? You can generate your own funding that way. I think that's one of the things that I talked about at that meeting. Sorry.
Debbie, we're in the middle of, we're just starting out actually our process for the WHO age-friendly.
Oh,
So we're covering, those major topics that you mentioned. And that's the structure that we're using right now to get us started.
that's fantastic.
Development. So.
That's fantastic. So I will tell you, the reason that we went through all the hoops and different directions that we went through in Contra Costa is because nobody wanted to do the World Health Organization age-friendly community because it was too intense and too cost prohibitive. So every time I presented on that, and I went to 19 towns and cities and to the Board of Supervisors, and I was met with every time, too much money, too much work, we don't have the infrastructure. So if you're already working on that and you already have approval, you're way ahead of where we were because you have a framework to work with. But how are you going to fund it? So that's why I say, look at, is it possible to do a sales tax measure in your county? Is it possible to do a local city sales tax? What is it that's going to fund the work? Because none of this is cheap because we didn't plan for it, right? We gained 3 decades of life expectancy last century and did nothing to plan for it in our built environment or our healthcare systems or anywhere.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed your talk. Sorry. Everybody okay?
Thank you so much, Debbie, for spending the time to do a presentation for us.
Sure.
If you're able to send your presentation to me, that would be fabulous, and then
I
I'll make
will.
sure it's distributed to our commissioners as well.
Yeah, I will share the Google Drive. As I said in my email, like for whatever reason, when I download it as a PowerPoint, it takes the pictures out of one of my slides. So if you're
Gotcha.
not
Okay.
married to the pictures, that's fine too. I'll just do that. But thank you for having me. Thank you for the work that you're doing there. I hope you have great successes, and I hope you put a lot of pressure on SourceWise to step up and start convening, because I think that's exciting. All right,
Wonderful.
take care, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Debbie.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Okay, we're moving on. So you're gonna get the slides, Deb, Jamie? She's gonna
Yes,
send
I
you-
will get the slides and I will distribute it to the commission.
Okay, so our next speaker is famous. The head of Parks and Recreation, Manning.
In this room, famous. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to thank you for having me. I just wanted to come and periodically with the other commissions, I'm the staff liaison for the Parks and Recreation Commission. But yeah, periodically I want to visit some of the other commissions that we oversee in the Parks and Recreation Department. So thank you for having me. And I know I've spoken to some of you, but I wanted to speak to the commission as a whole. So what I want to do today is just provide briefly, I won't go into detail, but I will answer questions too. Some updates on our Parks and Recreation programs and projects, as well as some of the future programs and possibly projects that we'll be venturing into in the next year or so, probably about 2 years time. So the first thing I want to mention, and these are projects and programs that affect senior community. So with that, I will start at Grant Park because we do have a senior program over there, and there's a lot of senior desires for senior things out in that facility. But I wanted to give you some updates on the projects over there. So first of all, Grant Park, I know there's some desire to get many things done. There's a lot of possibilities out there, but the structure of what needs to be done first is the electrical upgrade. So We are upgrading the electrical. That is already in progress. Right now, we've got the plans finalized. They are going through the approval process for permitting. So they're looking at getting the permits for that, and then we're gonna go to construction to get that, to look for a contractor to do that. Permitting takes some time because some of that permitting is through PG&E. We're doing everything we can to push that as quickly as possible. I don't have an exact timeline on that. I don't know if it's gonna be done in the next 6 months or in the next year and a half. So, and that's the timeline PG&E is giving us at this point, but we're doing everything that we can to try to speed that up. Because once we get the internal permitting, we'll move forward. And then obviously off of that comes the projects that follow, the HVAC, the hot water, and then anything else and these other ideas. And the HVAC and the hot water, I mentioned those because those will be lined up as soon as we get that electrical in. Anything else, expansion of cleanings and kitchens and stuff, that's down the road and has not been put in the plans yet, okay? Also at Grant Park, we're gonna be redoing the basketball court. And one of the positive things that we got this last year in our Parks and Recreation Department is a project manager. And so we have a project manager that's handling things like this electrical. He's on the front of that, managing that project, and that's why it's moving forward at a quicker pace than what I can squeeze in while I was doing that project, but also the basketball court as well. So there was some uplift with the basketball court and cracking. We're working on that, and that should be this fiscal year, this coming up fiscal year. We're trying to squeeze it in, and it was approved by council for this current fiscal year we're in, but this coming fiscal year, it's going to be right on the cusp when we start it. So that hopefully will be taken care of soon, or at least started soon, and we'll see if we get construction on that. And also the playground there. So the playground that's going to be coming up. That has not been definitively scheduled yet. We're trying to get a pretty good deal because we're going to do multiple playgrounds in the next few months. Hopefully that will get started and we'll get a better deal on multiple playgrounds at the same time. We're going to be looking at designs too. If anyone's noticed, our playgrounds now, they're all basically the same color. They were the same manufacturer. There are some reasons for doing that, but we kind of want to get a little more creative, and that includes possibly some fitness equipment. That's always been my vision of having fitness equipment. And when we talked about Grant and maybe putting fitness equipment at Grant, there are products that cater to senior fitness equipment, outdoor fitness equipment. So that's something that I've looked into in the past, especially for that facility. So we may take a look at that when that playground starts getting planned. So that's why I bring the playground up. Other projects outside of Grant, park pathway rehabilitation. Some of our parks pathways are the AC pathways. They have some uplift from roots. We're going to be working on that, starting with a full assessment so we can prioritize, which is the assessment's just about to be signed right now. Drinking fountains. Good news here. Our project manager has already signed someone, and actually they're finalizing the plans to put in. The first step of our drinking fountains in our parks will be the installation of new drinking fountains at Lincoln. So if you go out to Lincoln Park, there's no drinking fountains out there. We're going to get 2 of them, and that project should be done probably in the next few months. So that's going to be nice to have those out there. And then from there, the next step on the other side of that will be replacing all of our current drinking fountains with bottle fillers and stuff like that. They call them hydration stations now. The other exciting thing that we're all happy about is we're about to get the cafe to come in here to the community center. So we're working on their upgrades that need to be done. We're getting that assessed. And so that cafe vendor will be coming in once those upgrades are made. So that once we get that plan for upgrades, we'll look into making those upgrades and then bringing them in. That really isn't too far off that what we're looking at as far as getting those done. When they actually move in and start selling, I'm not sure. that'll be on them. Dog parks, we have the Hillview Dog Park will be coming in. I'm still waiting for the final plans to take the Parks and Recreation, but the plans basically, we have a final version, but they're working on a presentation right now to give to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And that's the dog park that's going to be here, larger dog park than what we see out there. Also, we're going to be assessing the Parks and Arts Commission will be assessing the McKinsey dog park as well to see what improvements are needed there. There is some budget to upgrade, do some upgrade there as well. Fitness equipment here at Hillview. Once again, we're going to talk about fitness equipment. We'll see which equipment is right for the setting. And then we're also, in-house, in our department, we're finalizing, the new picnic area that we're upgrading the picnic space at the Heritage Oaks Park. So that's gonna be really nice to have a picnic space there, that's defined, and reservable, small, but still reservable. And then we're gonna be doing some garden house upgrades. For those of you familiar with the really nice setting that the garden house is, we'll be doing some paint and carpet, some basic stuff, maybe work on some of the airflow in that area too. Senior programming. So as far as programming goes, looking for something, and I think I spoke with some of you after the joint meeting with the council, looking for something, and our department's looking for something to activate our current spaces at Hillview and Grant. Specifically at Hillview, it's a very nice facility here. We have the senior area, and we're looking for programming that could possibly bring people in, bring seniors in, something active, as well as the other programs that we're actually doing some investigation on is, and Councilmember Lean brought it up in the conversation right here, is some senior daycare. So there's some investigation, and actually she kind of outlined what we're finding in our investigation right now is there professional organizations that come in and usually lease land from the city. So that's where we're starting. We're going to see how that could work, and we'll make recommendations to council when it comes down to it if we see that that's a fit for our community. At the end of this fiscal year and coming up the next fiscal year, we've already Chris has already expanded our senior lunch program. We're making more space, more funding available to expand that program. And then the pickleball is another kind of project program. The outdoor pickleball program that goes on at the McKinsey, where those next steps are to come. I don't know what that's going to look like. I imagine our Parks and Recreation and Arts Commission will be looking at some of that, as well as with there's a group that are really into pickleball that very, well, they're definitely share their information with us on surrounding areas. But we'll see what the next steps are with that facility as well and the usage there. Do we, make permanent nets? Do we continue to do some things, or do we expand their hours? So we're gonna be looking at that. And that there is a senior community that loves pickleball, and they're always out there 4 days a week and asking for more. And then also what's going to help us, and I put this at the tail end here of what I'm talking about, and you will address it actually probably just a couple of items on your agenda, is source-wise representation. So source-wise, formerly the Santa Clara or Silicon Valley Committee on Aging, yeah, something like that, yeah. So they are now source-wise. And that's why when somebody said source-wise, I'm like, I don't know anything about source-wise. Then they told me the old name. I was like, I'm familiar with that organization. So that organization, they do actually provide resources. They are not always the resource, but they have resources for pretty much everything that you can think of regarding seniors. And that council, represented by, several organizations and agencies in there. All the cities are represented, and many other senior facing organizations are part of what they have. A council is that council, advisory council, and they talk about things, they push legislation, they actually identify grants and things like that. And as your item comes up, that's what the city of Los Altos is looking for, some kind of representation and in the source-wise council. And our city council and mayor would has charged this commission with selecting somebody, and it does not have to be somebody on this commission. Obviously, that is something that they would look for, but I have the paperwork to go ahead and put somebody on that seat with the mayor's ultimate approval on that. So we'll be seeing that, and there's probably a lot more senior topics to come out of that being involved in that council. So those are my updates. If you have any questions, and it doesn't have to be here, if you want to sit down, I know I've talked to Chris already, and we should sit down sometime if you have ideas and want to vet those ideas and really hash them out with my feedback. We can set up a time to meet as well too. All right, so thank you for having me. Any questions?
I just have one question, Manny. Prior to COVID, we had the big push for bocce ball. Has that kind of died out? To my observation, yes, it has. I'm not sure where the bocce players went.
They have organized some groups here, and I know, believe me, I hear and he doesn't always tell me his name, he just starts talking like he knows me, but the Friday group, he says, we're always here, we're always, and they're waiting for the cafe, they're gonna hang out here and have a good time, I'm sure. But I know the Friday group's here, and they're in my window facing that bocce court, as Jamie can probably tell you, there's somebody out there every day. But I know from previous experience at previous agencies, there are certain serious bocce players that when they hear of new courts, there's a big push. And I know there was some discussion of new courts at Grant for a while. I know the groups that came out were really pushing it there so they could expand. And then what was gonna happen with these courts, to see if they could have a lot of courts here. We've got 2 of them, they're really nice courts. We try to upkeep them every spring to get up to that. But that's not always their cup of tea, really. They wanna play at 4 courts, 6 courts, like you see in Redwood City or some of the. San Mateo, I know, has a lot too. But yeah, as of right now, yeah, it has kind of died down. Just
The usage of these particular bocce balls, is it fairly organized with the calendar and time slots and all the rest of it, or just simply catch as catch can?
You know, we do have that organization, I believe, Chris, you have, yeah. So we have that organization, but a lot of times if it's not, it's kind of just drop it. You could still drop in.
Second question, the grant program for bocce ball was more or less underwritten at the time, at least at the proposal stage, by the Rotary Club. Rotary has some money they wanted to spend on the grant park. I'm not sure what happened to that money or that program. That may well be available again. If that's the case, then would you be open, or would the city be open to entertain a bocce ball for grant?
Program, well, facility would be the first thing, and a proper built facility. I understand, and I've had talks with Rotary a few times on this, once in 2015 and once some years later. The amount of money that they were proposing to donate was not enough to build a quality facility at the time. So the city would put significant amount of money into that. So yes, we would be open to some money donated from an organization such as Rotary. But as of right now, with the other priorities that we have, I don't think the city's willing to put forward that money. Especially right now, I can tell you though, the Rotary is part of the drinking fountains that are going in at Lincoln Park. They're part of that, and there's a big donation coming from them on that one. So I think that would be the priority right now for them, and there's some other priorities that they may have with the garden house as well. But yeah, we're definitely open to hearing that again. But we have to remember, just like we had the skate park or the dog park at one point, even though there's funding for it or donations ready to do it, got to find a place for it. And Grant Park, I think that's where it becomes difficult. Do you put the bocce courts in that zone over here by the houses? Does it take up space by the soccer court? So we'll have to go through that whole thing. So it is a big process.
Thank you.
And clarification, I think the group that came forward with the donation was the Legacy, not Rotary.
Oh, the second, yeah, that's right. I actually spoke with Rotary.
Oh, it was a different, okay.
Yeah, oh no, there was one that was Rotary, and I was walking through, and that's a whole different story. We could talk on the side on that. The first one, but you're right. The second
The
donation.
second one was from the.
Contribution from a Rotary point, it was King Lear, if I recall.
That was the legacy.
That was the Legacy.
That was the legacy. Yeah, that was the legacy. You're right on that. And I remember some of the names that when Rotary came forward as well. So we're open to all of those though and discussing those things.
I was at those meetings when that came up, and I thought the bottom line was that there wasn't the proper space at Grant Park to put in bocce ball.
And that's why I bring that up. It's regardless of the funding, we need to find the space.
Yeah, that's why the money was turned down.
I think it was the other one was the
I'm sorry?
residents are against it. A lot of residents were against it.
Some were for and some were against, but, yeah.
Anyway, I'll stop here.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's take that. Okay, our next item are the minutes that we have, and we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. The first set.
Jane, just for clarification, it would be best to do a motion for each set of minutes.
So the first one that we're gonna look at are the March 4th meeting minutes. And they were in your packet. And I hope people had time to look at them. I have one comment about that I noticed. On page 3, under action E, the woman who spoke with us today, I think was Debbie Toth. And this says Debbie Toth. So I think it's the same person, but it's just spelled incorrectly here. I'm not sure. Is that true?
Sure, we can update that.
Can you just?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, because it was, and that's the only thing I picked up. Does anyone have any other comments? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Abstain.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the April minutes. Does anyone have any comments? Any questions? Can I have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next topic is the source-wise conversation.
All right, so we've, between some of the presentations and some of the discussion, essentially before you, we have the senior commission to discuss and recommend selecting a representative to serve on the SourceWise Advisory Council. Information and there was additional information in the packet in regards to the responsibilities and background that this particular representative should have. SourceWise does meet 10 times a year, and it is the same day as our meeting, which is the first Monday of the month. And it is, all of their meetings are held virtually, but it is the 12 to 2 time frame. So it is just before our meeting. And so this was brought before City Council on April 30th, and their direction was that they would like the Senior Commission to make a recommendation on a representative. The recommendation is that we could see if any of the senior commissioners are interested and available to possibly serve. And again, it would be, the start of the term would be July 1st. And the term is for 3 years. You are able to serve a second term if you would like to as well. But, we're talking about the initial term. And then that would go back to City Council for approval and appointment. So that is what is before you today. And Manny and I are here for any questions that you may have specifically on this topic.
One additional piece of information as I was reading through, there is going to be a responsibility to serve on a committee within the advisory board. So you'd be on the advisory board and pick the committee. I don't know how that's going to happen, but it was mentioned in these documents, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. And we're going to find out what the committees are about, but so, and I don't know how often they meet or what that's all about yet, but do we have any, I'm interested, but are you interested? Who's interested to do it?
I'm kind of head up to here and other things too.
Yeah.
So,
We look for happy.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so,
I was nominated last time, so 4 years ago. I attended 2 meetings, and they have to approve me to accept for a member.
That's why it started, I actually spoke to the representative and they're like, they would, even if you got approved by us, they need to approve somebody. So it's gonna be till at least July until that.
After the exploratory 2 meetings that I attended, I decided that there's nothing proactive about it. I couldn't really influence any directions. The only thing that remains is that just be aware of what's going on. and you can't really influence the outcome, and the outcome is available to us anyway, so. With that, with those provisos, decide what you want to do.
So what you're saying is, could you clarify that a little bit, because what, are we saying that you didn't feel like you had any say in what the conversation was, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay,
That's a very good way to characterize.
so when you said you attended 2 meetings, was that, because they didn't have other ones, or you weren't available?
No, they invited me to attend as an observer and then mutually decide whether we want to join up or not.
So you had like a probationary period before they
No, I
said
don't
yes?
call it probationally, but, you can refer to it any term you want, but it entails attending the meeting, they kind of more or less take a assessment of you as a participant. I don't even know how you would do that because I didn't say anything, and so, anyway, sorry, I wanted to let you know from a point of view of somebody who took the first couple of steps.
What about the committee issue that I was bringing up? Were you appointed to any other committee, or did you serve on a committee
No, but the first they have to approve.
of the advisory part?
Yeah.
And then, okay, I don't know how the process is now. It might be a little different, I'm not really sure.
You want to try it?
I would try it. I mean, I don't know.
That's a good
I
idea.
don't want to kill myself.
Yeah, you'd be great, actually.
Thank you.
It's up to people, Bill's not here and Charlie's not here. So we might want to wait until we get information. Maybe one of them wants to do it. I don't know.
My recommendation here is, it has been quite a few meetings since we've had all 7 commissioners present. So I think we can move forward with the decision if at least a majority of the commission is comfortable. But obviously we can go with the direction that you would like, but if we wait until everyone is present and we're going into the summer months, we have no meeting in July. I think that puts us in a very tight situation if we're trying to appoint someone by July.
I would project that if all members are present here, by acclamation, our chair would be.
Well, I'm the vice chair.
Vice chair would be selected.
I would second that. It's a very good thing to do.
So my recommendation would be to go ahead with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got the history on the commission here. You have the leadership from past and still.
Do we need an alternative?
I would like to see a motion.
Yeah, there would have to be a motion.
Because this will be a recommendation to council. So
Yeah.
we need a motion.
And council would like to act on that as well, so please make a motion.
I move that Jane Cohen be the representative of this commission to SourceWise.
I second the move.
We vote on it. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
All right.
Manny for staying for that. So what will happen next? It'll get presented to the council.
Correct. So now that we have the recommendation from the senior commission, it will go back to the city council. And at least given the time frame that we're in, it will probably be the second meeting in May that will go back to city council. And then with that, then as Jim just outlined, once city council appoints who they would like to be their representative, we will send that information to SourceWise. And then theoretically, we would have a start roughly in the July timeframe. And if that is approved, we will obviously share that information directly with you, Jane.
That's one of the ones they will be in July and December.
I believe so, yes. So the first meeting.
We don't have meetings July and December, is our August and December.
It is July
So
and
it's within
December.
2 months.
Correct. Yes.
It also says to learn more about the services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder where they got that title source wise, I don't. Because Council on Aging, I mean, everyone like knows that, but they do, the agency is descriptive. So
I think the
I'll
name-
have to investigate,
The
what, do
name
you know
comes
what
from
it
the
is?
fact that they have created a very, very extensive online reference,
Referrals and references.
referrals and
Yeah.
references, so it's a fabulous set of informational.
Yeah. That's why
Database,
we-
but
that's
that
why
being
we
said,
decided
yeah.
not to do our own stuff because we-
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic, and that's the work plan.
So we have the work plan, it was included, in your packet. So, it kind of is one of our standing items, so if there are any updates, or adjustments that we need to make, this would be a great time to discuss.
Once a subcommittee completes their work, do we delete them from the work plan at that point?
I would say, what we've adjusted to is we do have a status, so if there is something that has been completed, which there has been, so if you'll notice the participate in we have a few, like, as an example, AARP, age-friendly survey outreach, if you notice, there's a status column, and we can list it as completed. So if there is something that should be updated to completed, we can go ahead and do so. Excuse me.
Members on and Kevin also, the task force. And we've met, but our work's not completed. We're
Not
still
yet.
gonna be working with them.
That is correct.
So that's the time go.
Correct. The task force were anticipated. I think we have one of our last meetings in September, so we still have a little bit more to go.
And the target date is December.
Correct.
So. And then the note taking, I don't think we're doing that, the note taking.
No,
That's really deleted, isn't it?
Yeah, I can update that because really the note taking is being done by our cafe consultant. But I know many of our, at least with our third and, update a little bit later on the town hall. I know several of the commissioners have been present, at some of those meetings as well. So I can update that.
Yeah, maybe
But
some
the support,
adjustment.
but the support has been done, we did everything but the note taking, so that's not completely.
Right, yeah. But it says senior commission, it doesn't really say, it's just that the project is note taking, so that's really.
No, we can adjust that because that was not really, yep.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay, what about page 2, anything on that? Let's see. Chris and Chris, right. Is there any, what's that about? Is that?
So I know through discussions, it's one where two things. Would love to be able to get the information from staff on programs that we have now and how well they are being attended, so we get an idea of what programs are popular, what aren't. I know it was also mentioned too, it's a good idea to wait and get the information from Cafe of what is of interest to those in our community. So moving forward with programs, it's one of those, well, how much time, our next step would be how much time do we have with the schedule? What classes might be substituted out, or maybe they become seasonal. And so we would ask staff for assistance on that to get that information. So do I need to, my next step to ask on that?
No, and we do have a little bit later in the agenda where we did share the updates that you had as your report out from this particular ad hoc subcommittee. In regards to next steps, I think it, and maybe that is something that, because it's a little bit open-ended and maybe we can target some specific areas, because again, we want to have it task specific. And so it might be good, maybe looking at, some of those areas and then honing in on what we, because sometimes when you go really, really broad, it becomes too big. So maybe if we can, maybe pick some specific things to look at, that might, give us something that we can, hone in on versus having it be a little bit more general, if that makes sense.
Are we able to utilize some of the facilities at Grant on Monday? Because I know the staff is on Monday as well.
That, and that's something, if there are suggestions, I think that's something that, the suggestion could be made and then, staff, we can kind of take a look at what is available. Because we do have, sometimes other programs or renters that utilize the facility. So I think it would just be a matter of looking at what is available and then what is, obviously staff resource, what we can do there as well too.
Well, it looks really good about bringing in some very interesting people.
Yes.
So even like last week, typically we try to do it around lunch because if we got a crowd there, we're just gonna marry them over into the next room. But last week, or the week before, you had someone in there and it was well received. So.
No, it was, caregiving,
Oh, yeah.
caregiving support, and, Kevin will report on that after.
Yeah. So, to your point, I think maybe looking at some of those specific suggestions, and then, you can work directly with staff to maybe bring some of those, ideas.
Thank you.
Yes.
Question, when are we expecting the analysis from the survey to come?
So that is something that we will, I'll need to follow up with Anne on. So we had gotten all of the raw data from AARP. I know that, looking at all of that, I will have to follow up with Anne to find out.
I think that might drive some program areas of interest.
Yeah.
The analysis.
Yes.
Question by question, it's hard to like group and then figure out what might be. And the other thing is, change the date from this March 24th to something a little bit later, because it's ongoing.
Well, which one?
The one we were just talking about, the program one on page.
Yeah, and so we can adjust it. If you remember, specifics on the ad hoc subcommittees, it should have a target. So since we're past March, is there a new kind of target date that you would like to update that to? Because there should be a specific sunset.
We don't really know, we don't have the answer to this yet, about the program,
we don't.
new programs, right?
Right.
My summer sent, I think sometime in the fall, mid-fall.
Anytime giving us time to look at the results from the survey, so. Right.
So do you want to do a fall date, maybe in the October timeframe then? Because at that time,
October sounds good.
because I think that's also too when we will, at least at this time, when Anne is anticipating bringing back the full, comprehensive pieces for our age-friendly action plan. I think that's what we're targeting, for bringing that back to the senior commission in October. So I think that will coincide nicely.
So is it okay to, say that the March was completed and another one is going to be forthcoming in October, something like that. You know, in that category, the month.
Sure, so,
So we don't have to rewrite the whole thing again.
no, or, is it going to be slightly different, or are we just extending the anticipated
Well,
completion?
if you can have more data to go, maybe they'll be able to make new recommendations.
By that time, we'll have the information from staff of what isn't working. Or what might be lower, or what might be seasonal, and then what the task force's figure has as suggestion, so. Or should that be in two separate things, maybe?
Yeah, that might make more sense then, we can
To get the
separate those
information
two.
and diagnose what space we have available, and then we can look at what we can add with the information. So when would we be able to get that information?
You'll have it before October.
Well, I know but.
Over there.
Yeah, information for attendance to some of these, presentations. Because I know we take attendance every time we go, so we know how many people. Do we take that and make it historical?
Like,
Yeah, I mean, we could give you, I don't know how, yeah, I mean, I could give you trends in terms of workshops of American Mahjong versus bridge, programming, attendance,
Or for the speakers, like,
oh, the speak.
right,
Yeah.
like when Cody comes in to make his presentation, like tomorrow's gonna be the fire department on fall prevention.
Totally, yeah, we can start, we have head counts, I think, not to overanalyze, but most of the time people are coming for the community lunch.
Right. And we still count that head.
So, yeah, that's somewhat of your dynamic variables.
Right.
Is when and where. Yeah, certainly, I can share some insights on that.
but beyond that, but for those classes throughout the week, so that way, if you're getting 2 or 3 people consistently, that you have to go, is that worth the staff, or should we consider getting a different class that, whether it be an exercise class or be, something, does that make?
I think the only other thing that you'd want to track is adult 50 plus, how many of them are volunteer led? So it's just a gathering where there's no, why not?
Right.
Come lead a stretching class, come lead a walking class, which I, go on a walk with Chris and Chris. That would be a programming.
Yeah, so I guess it's trying to figure out, what do we have currently, what's really working and what's not? I know we can always add volunteers to come in and do the walks or do the what have you, and utilize the marketing tools that you have, and get the word out. But I also know that part of the difficulty was staff, right? Of not having enough staff or enough hours or so to, and so to understand where are we on it?
Sure, so a little part, and not to dive too deep into this one, so I think for the piece on the work plan, I think it does make sense to separate. Because I know you did your kind of initial meetup. And so I think we're gonna get a little bit more granular to analyze kind of this additional piece with staff with what we're gonna get from Age Friendly, and we can create kind of that separate one to highlight in October. Yeah.
This is having test
No, absolutely. And so, but the little bit to the other part is we have a lot of different types of programs, as Chris just highlighted. We have some of those discussion groups, volunteer groups. We have what we would consider our drop-in programs that people could just come in to do a puzzle, to play bridge, to play mahjong. 2, classes that people pay for, that they want to learn how to play mahjong or learn how to play bridge. So there is an instructor that is leading that particular class. Two, we have speakers and seminars or presentations that go on. So I think, and that I think could be something that it might be good for us to set up a time with the ad hoc subcommittee to kind of talk about, because you could say on a general basis, that's programming, but when you dive, you know, there are some classes that really, you want the smaller class size to like 2 or 3 versus maybe like an exercise class or a larger class that you may want 20 or 30 people in to make sure that you're making it worthwhile. But I think there are different dynamics to consider when we look at successful versus not successful. So we can definitely tackle that, I think, directly with the ad hoc subcommittee and kind of talk through which pieces we want to look at.
So I'm trying to understand. So if we're changing this, because this will come later and this will be a different ad hoc. So we change the name now and then we come back to the. I leave this one. You'd leave this one, but if we can't be on 2 ad hocs.
No, correct. And so, I mean, because initially, what my thought process was, is this initial one, you did meet, and we can amend it so that you did meet to kind of have that discussion on programming. To me, that one is completed.
So we can put that in.
And then we're gonna create a next one because you want to get attendance information. Specifically to look at attendance in correlation to what is gonna come forward through the age-friendly process to then make recommendations. So that is it's a little bit nuanced and different from what that above one is. So to my, you know, that first one is completed. We'll create that second one, so that you can adjust and look at that information and make those recommendations.
That, no motion, no agendas or anything like that. That just happening. Okay.
We don't even really do that. Okay. You okay with it? You comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving along. Informational items are next, the flyers.
Yeah. So I will just do some highlights. So we have information from Los Altos Hills, specifically on their Pathways Run and Walk, which is Saturday, May 11th at 9 a.m. Start is at the Westwind Community Barn. They are also highlighting that they do need volunteers for their pathway run/walk. There's a QR code with additional information. And then we go to our Los Altos information. We have the information on where nature and history converge. Which will be on Thursday, May 16th. It'll be in the Apricot Room here in the Community Center. We also have our upcoming Family Fun Day on June 8th with the theme of dinosaur discovery. And then we have a few, to kick off the summer concert, there is a meetup just before at 5 o'clock, and the summer concerts for the month of June will actually be down at Grant. So that will be that Thursday, June 13th. There is also International Yoga Day. It looks like there is an event on Thursday, June 20th at 1 o'clock. And that'll be in the Grand Oak Room here at the Community Center. And then there will be a mini trip to the Wells Fargo Museum and Ferry building. Chris, I just realized I'm taking and doing all of your stuff. I'm just going through the flyers.
You're doing a fine job, thank you.
Well, I will do that. I'll turn you over to Chris if you have questions. On August 7th. I should have left those for you and then done the other ones. I apologize, Chris. And then, well, I'll pause there to see if there are specific questions on any of the flyers and events. And Chris, feel free to jump in with anything else. No questions? Okay. Our Redwood Grove Summer Camp is coming back this year, starting June 17th through August 5th. And there's a flyer, so if you know anyone that is interested in would want to send their kids for some fun activities this summer, there is a QR code to register. And we're very excited that Camp Jelly Bean is coming back this year for our younger campers, 3.5 to 4 years. And there's a flyer for that program. And then, of course, we are always hiring. So specifically, doing a larger push, if you know anyone, your neighbors or friends that have individuals that you think would be a wonderful fit to work with kids this summer, we are actively looking for camp counselors to work our Redwood Grove and Camp Jelly Bean programs. So please feel free to forward these flyers on to help us with our recruiting process. And then as always, at least in other capacities, our current full-time opportunities, it looks like we have an assistant engineer, always looking for police officer trainees, and then obviously all of our other part-time, not just summer camp, but we are also looking for assistance with our indoor pickleball program out at Egan Gym. And then always looking for a facility attendance, additional assistance with our Adult 50 Plus program, our teen program, and then it looks like part-time dispatchers as well. And then, as always, also looking for volunteers in any number of those programs and our special events too. So, any questions? No? Okay.
So the next one is the age-friendly report.
All right, so specifically for age-friendly, what I wanted to update the commission on is that we have completed all 3 of our focus groups, which is, and we had, I think, a very good and lively discussion at the 3rd focus group, which was held last Tuesday on the 30th. And thank you, senior commissioners, for recommending, I think, a really good group that gave a lot of feedback as well. Upcoming, the next on our agenda in the process is holding our town hall meeting, which is actually going to be Thursday, May 23rd at 1 o'clock, and that'll be here at the community center in this room. Registration is preferred but not required. We are planning to get A-frames up, and we are going to be doing 2 ads in the town crier as well, so that we can do a larger outreach to get people here for the town hall meeting. And so obviously that will be facilitated by our cafe representative, Anne. And again, we will have some light refreshments there for the meeting as well too. So, and which is outlined on the flyer as well. So that is where we stand. There is no, obviously nothing to do, but wanted to update as far as where we are in the process. And happy to answer any questions if you have any. Okay. Oh, and I will highlight one other thing. There was a report from Shawbury that was included as part of my update. It was missed as part of one of the previous updates, so I did include that just for the record.
Next item, number 9, caregiver support info. We received a packet from Bill.
That is correct, and this is just informational only, and so it does include the commission did agree to place that on the agenda, so including this as information only. And this was the information that was mentioned at the March meeting. It was not put forward in April because our April meeting was specific to our focus group. So it is coming forward to them.
Thank you. People have that, I think, when we have it to read. So now we're moving
Okay,
on.
Kevin, give an update on his experience on the caregiver session we had at Grant Park.
Oh,
I can do that, I'm gonna do bills here in 11.
number 11, yeah, we're not up to that yet.
And then I'll follow that with, this.
You want to go back up to the caregiver after that?
Yeah.
Okay. He's gonna cover it.
Okay,
So give us a minute. So the next thing are commission subcommittee staff oral reports, requests for future agenda items. So number 10 is the 50+ programming ad hoc subcommittee receive report.
And I did include the report that both Chris's submitted for their committee. So wanted to open it up to them to see if they had anything else they wanted to add.
Any questions about that? The next one is the Age Friendly Task Force Ad Hoc Subcommittee received.
Yeah, this is, the subcommittee, consisting of commissioners Buchholz, Bowen, and O'Reilly, met on the 25th. The idea was to select possible participants in the
Oh, for the focus group.
for
Future participants.
Oh, gotcha.
Events that we need.
and organizations that should be represented. They included a number of individuals and also or possibility of things like residential care, emergency preparedness groups, first responders, caregiver companies, ER nurses, public health, and et cetera. So we discussed that at the meeting.
And we reviewed our goals, you know, what our mission was, so just clarified it. That's it.
Yeah, that's,
So now, you wanna go to what you're now
yes,
saying, so that's on 9.
yes, recently, at Grant Park, it was last week, it was last Wednesday. Frank, Martin, who's actually a former member of this committee, gave a report or a talk, I say more of a talk, on caregiving. Frank is caring for his wife who has Alzheimer's. He's the primary caregiver. And, it was really interesting. First of all, there were a good number of people there, filled the room.
Wow.
So, that tells me that this is a growing need.
Huge,
I'm a little ahead of the boomers, but that's the boomer population.
yeah, I mean,
And it's a demographic, bulge, and we're in it now. So I have no doubt that as we look at care, we look at, resources and, for adults, unmet needs, this is going to be a major one. Because, caring for, a mate who has Alzheimer's is a life-changing experience. It takes over, everything else stays away. And Frank can talk about it. He did a good job talking about it. And he went into some details about selecting, home care people. The Alzheimer's organizations and others have lists of people and they're certified. And sometimes that's a great mix and sometimes you get the wrong people. There are a lot of informal organizations, word of mouth, the Tongan community and this whole peninsula area, very famous, very well known for caregiving, and I've known some people who've used them. But there's any number of decisions that you have to make, and there's no end to it, and it's just a 24/7 kind of a thing. So I think that's going to be should be a major focus as we look at what what we're needing as a committee or as a community. So essentially, that was it. You were there, maybe you could add to that.
Yes. So it's important, we were trying to, inform people how important it was that they get the, support they needed. And that's why this commission's role is important in providing the services needed within your city. And we talked about how difficult it was to seek the transportation needs as well in providing, care when someone has to seek either medical care or services outside of the city. So it's so much more than just saying, oh, we need to provide senior programs in our city. So, that's why it was important that Debbie, the timing was perfect. And having her speak, having her recognize that, you know, we can do more for our senior community.
Yes.
So, that said, I did want to share that this Friday, there's a Live Well, Age Well Health Expo at the Cupertino Senior Center. So I did want to share that with you all. It'll be at 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Cupertino Senior Center. So, yeah. So that's
Sponsored by that Oak, senior care kind of a group that seems to be active in Cupertino. I sent the link, I found it. Looks like we have something similar to what Debbie was, that lady was talking about in Santa Clara County. And it has its tentacles into Cupertino, Los Gatos, and places like that. So the reason I'm mentioning that, drawing upon that expertise that's could be available to us is probably important.
actually, it's that SourceWise. That SourceWise is what's helping all these organizations.
Okay, yeah, right.
And when you need, there's expos coming up as well, senior expos coming up, and that's why we can have access to all this information. So this health expo, you know.
Do you have a flyer or
I don't have
a,
a flyer, but I'll send you an email.
I'm sure if it's being held at this, the
Cupertino
Cupertino
Senior
Senior Center, I'm sure we can find information.
This Friday at 10 a.m. to 1:30, it's let's see.
May 10th.
Yeah, May 10th.
And George,
No, you just show up, but yeah, and I think what I forgot to mention earlier as well is how important, people who attended the event at, last week was looking for, you know, just like a group that people can get together and share their, yeah, a support
The
group.
Alzheimer's organization does have support groups. There's nothing, the closest one I think is in Cupertino at a church.
Yeah, so they were hoping to try to form bonds with other people within the community so they can give each other moral support.
There's all kinds of issues, you know, the caretakers, there's respite services, because that's a 24/7 if you're the caretaker.
sure.
So there's respite services that.
So all these Live Well, Age Well events will have resources that they can learn more from. So, yeah, I'll pull up the information and I'll send it to Jamie and she can send it to all of you.
Vice Chair Cohen, Councilmember Tyson has his hand raised.
Hello. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person. And also I had another conflict. I joined around 4:25 and it was a webinar and I just raised my hand. And so now I'm a panelist. So I didn't even realize I could do that. So I just wanted you to know I've been listening and paying attention, and good to see everybody, even though you're remote. Well, I'm remote, I guess.
But I wanted take a moment to talk about what, Councilwoman Lynn talked about and you talked about. I think the sweetest spot of serving our community for senior community really is the care of the people that are relying upon us, and they getting afflicted with this potentially with dementia or with the Alzheimer's. I have friends that have that problem, and really their life can turn into a living hell. To the extent we are able to identify sources for them to draw upon, or in fact invite them to, in a proactive way, to communicate and share and whatever, and in all the areas that is important, like being able to get care 24/7. Things like the bodily functions is really difficult. According to what I'm hearing.
Expensive too.
Extremely expensive, $200,000 a year, that kind of a thing.
There's a huge literature on caregiver stress.
Yes.
It's like a major disease in itself, in a way, not disease, but, a condition, a troublesome area. And, there are many resources for helping people. And some of the faith-based organizations have communities of people that need like support. And I think it's, that's just one of many things, but that's critically important. Having the support and listening to other people's strategies for how they help to solve certain issues, and sharing information is just so important.
And I want to go so far as saying that perhaps this should find its way into a formal part of a work plan for us, for the community, for this commission, to really actively and systematically look into this problem and find all the sources that are available to us. I don't know how my fellow commissioner feel about this, but I think that this could be an important work plan item for us.
Thank you, Jim.
And Chris will be emailing you information about Friday's event. Did you need a flyer?
Well, whatever you have. Oh, is that a flyer up here?
I'm happy to print out some flyers of them.
Can you send it to us?
Went on the web and found that, right?
Thank you.
So we could do that.
How are we doing on our agenda here? Are we up to, are you okay with this? Any questions on Kevin's report? So,
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for
so now we have, staff oral reports, Town of Los Altos Hills. George, you giving a report? I don't think he does.
George is a liaison, he's not a member.
No, I know that, But, Los Altos Hills used to have someone that gave.
Me here, right here, what do you need?
Oh, you have a report?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay, no report, but sometimes you have flyers and stuff, I guess.
Okay, so.
Jamie was mentioning what they.
So they usually send them ahead of time. It is an interim person. For those of you that were familiar with Sarah Robustelli, she actually is now with the city of Palo Alto. So there's an interim recreation and services supervisor, Amina, that is filling in. But she was unfortunately not able to join us today. Yes, we do. My additional report is going to be very short. We have our summer activity guide that has been released. And so if you have not picked up a copy, it is around the center and at the front. So please feel free to pick one up on your way out. That obviously lists all of our summer activity, which obviously includes our summer concerts, our Glorious Fourth event, and all of those wonderful activities that Chris had put specifically in the packet for our Adult 50+ program. But the only other piece that I haven't asked for is we do officially have a flyer for the town hall. I wanted to enlist assistance from the commissioners if you happen to be out or would be willing to help distribute some flyers to help encourage people to come to the town hall. would be very appreciative of that. As I mentioned, we are gonna be doing, A-frames and doing 2 ads in the town crier. But obviously that warm, connection that if you happen to, go to your neighbors and say, we'd love to get your feedback, obviously they may not have necessarily participated in the focus group, but we still want to encapsulate their feedback, which is why we're having the town hall. So that's my last plea, to see if you might be willing to help distribute that information to encourage as many people as we can to attend. And that's it for me.
The last thing on our agenda are future agenda items. So work plan is always a rolling item that we always include. Just, who has anything else that they would like to bring up at the next meeting?
Again, I'd like to bring up the topic we just talked about and as a formally included as a line item on the work plan. Perhaps in the next meeting. Good notion of, basically caregivers, assistance. In all the needs
An
of.
ad hoc
providing-
subcommittee you want to add to
Yeah.
the work plan for next? So you want it as a separate topic, or you want it under the work plan?
I think I just want to make sure it gets into the work plan. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Or you want
I
to
think he's agendizing that he'd like to have that for discussion, and from there you can make the decision.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jim. Okay,
Is that something that we have to?
So, Jim,
caregiving,
Yes.
what's the title?
are there 2 other commissioners that would support that?
Caregiving resources for the community, for the, I guess I'm having trouble collaborating, the people that need it.
Caregiving concerns and possible strategies.
Services.
Nothing broad, so that we
Again,
can fit
it's really-
everything under the umbrella.
I just want to make sure the more resources get in there, because that's what we have to identify.
Right. Okay. Anything else you wanna?
So there, it sounds like everyone is supportive of adding that as an agenda.
So this would be outside of businesses that run caregiving service.
Not necessarily outside of business, but it's for us as a group, as a community that's responsible for making the life of our seniors better. This is a very urgent and present item. So from my way of thinking, we have to be able to more or less coalesce all the resources that are available, whether businesses or otherwise, that we can discuss and perhaps formulate a solution. That we can, as a subcommittee, that we can ad hoc subcommittee, and we'll just work through it just like we did the age friendly. What is, it had to be with the end results in mind. Here's what we want done, let's figure out how to get there.
Is this gonna come out of age-friendly, into our age-friendly action plan? One of the domains or more than one of the domains is gonna funnel into that?
It potentially could, and so, I think, and maybe a suggestion, because I know, now, obviously, we have healthcare services as one of the domains, in age-friendly, and so you could theoretically create the ad hoc subcommittee to kind of have some of those recommendations. And another, I think, aspect that the ad hoc subcommittee could do, if the commission wanted to, is maybe have that conversation and make recommendations to submit to CAFE to include in the action plan. If you do come up with a listing of resources or other ideas or solutions that could be suggested and maybe included in the action plan, that could be one thing. Or as you kind of talked about, Jim, what is the end result, and then coming up with different tasks or things to move that forward. There's a lot of, I think, littler tasks that you can kind of put forward. So I think it just kind of depends on what pieces or aspects you want to start to tackle. Obviously, the ad hoc committees, you do want to have a specific task. We want to try and get away from kind of the broad. So we do want to kind of tighten it up a little bit so that there is specificity. So maybe that is something that we could agendize for that so that the commission can kind of fine tune what aspects you want to focus on. And then we can go from there. But I think there is support for at least that to be on the agenda for the next
Yeah,
meeting.
it's better that you have it agendized because I think you're going into discussion right now, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other suggestions? Okay, I think we have accomplished our mission. I'd like to adjourn the meeting. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.